Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, to the Metals, Money, and Markets Weekly. It's me, Trevor Hall, sitting in this week for both Mickey Fulp and Mike Fox, as both are stuck being transported wherever they're going out in the world. We could only guess. So I'm going to sit in for this episode's Flying Solo, and it was an interesting week despite some low volatility numbers in the VIX. There was volatility in the markets, especially in the precious metals, and obviously that's where we're going to start, as that's where we start every week. Gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, and the base metals copper, they were all down substantially, but I would say it's a healthy pullback here given the extremely overbought conditions we've seen both gold and silver in the last couple of weeks. So we'll talk more about copper here in just a minute. Gold was down quite by $120. It was a big move down. We're down 3.3%, closing at $2,334. Silver was down 3.4%, or down a little, just under a dollar to $30.41 per ounce. Platinum was the big loser, 4.3% down to $1,036, while palladium was down 7/10% to $989. It was a week of selling corrections in precious metals, one that could probably be as expected. There was some help from selling from the bond market, and more concerns about another wave of inflation within that bond market pricing. We'll talk more about that later, but that did certainly help. Like copper, the other big flyer over the last couple weeks, that had a correction. It's back down below the $5 mark, down 3.3% to $4.70 per pound. All right, let's move over to the energy sector. We're going to talk about WTI first. It also had a little bit of correction. It continues a little bit of that downtrend we've seen, closing at $77.56 per barrel of WTI. That's down almost 3%. U.S. active oil and gas drill rig counts for the week fell by 4 to a total of 600. That's more than 100 fewer rigs than this time last year. Meanwhile, the U.S. crude oil production stayed the same for the 10th week in a row at an average of 13.1 million barrels per day. Despite struggling crude prices, crude inventories are building up while gasoline demand continues to rise, and seasonality is also upon us, obviously, as the summer driving season has begun. I just picked up my kids from the last day of school today, actually. So yeah, summer has officially kicked off. But U.S. government agencies are a little concerned of higher than usual hurricane activity this year, as warm sea temperatures and falling wind shear conditions may result in 7 major hurricanes in the season beginning June 1st. And that's more than double of last year's 3 hurricanes. And obviously, we know what those phenomenons can have the effects on the oil trade. So one to pay attention to. Moving over to uranium, it actually was a winner. It was up 1.5%, $91.60 per pound U308. And some news out of the uranium field following the ban of Russian uranium into the U.S., the geopolitics of the energy fuel continues. It was reported that Kazakhstan, that's the largest producer of uranium, is getting more interest from Russia and China. Those two have moved to increase their stakes in Kazakh uranium production and impacting global energy security, which highlights allegations of corruption and covert deals within the industry. Chinese companies, including state-backed owned companies, have already acquired rights to 60% of future Kazakh uranium production, while Russia controls over 22% of that production as well. This could present sourcing problems for Western utilities as supply isn't found quickly. So it will be a story out of the uranium sector to pay close attention to. All right, let's move over to the money section. The Dixie, that was down 0.2% to 104.73. That is looks like it's making a clear trend downward. The euro, that was down 0.1% to 1.085. The loonie, down 0.4% to 0.731. 0.17. And I told you we were going to talk about the bond market. That 10-year benchmark yield, that was up 0.04% to 4.46 on the yield. That's moved up, actually, so obviously. But the one big mover, that is that 2-year yield. Continue to watch that for the last 3 years. That it is, for me, that big inflation indicator. That 5% yield on the 2-year continues to be a magnet. It had huge selling, yields up, closing at 4.94%. So continue to watch that to see if it will bust above 5% once again and maybe stay there. So that will have implications on the Fed funds rate and inflation expectations as well. Heading to the markets, the Dow, S&P, and the NASDAQ all made new all-time highs at some point this week. Most notably, the S&P and the NASDAQ hit that accomplishment yesterday after NVIDIA. Of course, we got to talk about NVIDIA. Their quarterly financials were released, moving everything upward, but it was a bit more of a sell the news event because the yesterday market started higher and then sold off pretty hard. But at the end of the day today, Dow Jones 39,069, that's down 2.3% on the week. The S&P was down, basically flat, but down 0.1% to 5299. The NASDAQ, it was up 1.4% to 16,920, thanks to the big flyer NVIDIA as well. And the VIX, the volatility, there is none. Stuck in the mud at 12. It's been like that for a while. So, yeah, I guess the market's feeling pretty bullish. What can stop it? There's nothing wrong right now. I guess that's what the VIX is saying here. And to our friends up north on the venture, we are in an uptrend. It's hard to believe. It's been a long time coming, but the TSX venture is an uptrend. It had a little bit down move this week, down 1.1%, closing at 608. And here in the U.S., it's going to be a long weekend. Happy to celebrate Memorial Weekend and the beginning of summer. But as we get back into things Tuesday, there's going to be a lot of Fed speak. In fact, there's going to be a lot of Fed speak because shortly after that, the Federal Reserve members are kind of blacked out from speaking. But beyond that, we've got consumer confidence data coming in on Tuesday. That Fed Beige Book happens Wednesday afternoon. Thursday, first revision of GDP along with initial jobless claims come in and pending home sales. That's going to be a big day for data as well. And then Friday, the PCE index and core PCE index numbers are coming in. And so that obviously could have some implications on the way market moves. So despite a short week next week, there's going to be a lot of data, and also there's commentary from the Federal Reserve that investors and traders will be paying attention to. All right, everybody. Well, appreciate you coming in and listening in. We'll welcome back both Mike and Mickey next week, and I will bid thee fare thee well once again. Have a wonderful Memorial Weekend, everybody. Celebrate safely and loudly, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
The Metals, Money, and Markets Weekly is syndicated by our friends at Kitco.com. Mickey Falp and his musings can be found at mercenarygeologist.com and on Twitter at mercenarygeo. And I'm Michael Fox, published at theprospectornews.com. Thank you for listening, and please join us again next week.